So our journey through rugby in Musselburgh begins here at Newfield, the Loreto School playing fields. There's a report in the Loretonian, the paper of Loreto School, that rugby was played here as early as February 1880, where they played a game against Royal High School. In the years from 1880 up to before the Great War, rugby in Musselburgh was being played by the sons of influential and wealthy individuals who stayed in this part of the town. Very important to stress that this was the Musselburgh part of the town, even though these pitches are technically in Fisher Row. After the Great War, there was a great thirst for outdoor recreation in Musselburgh. On that front, Provost Mitchell gathered a group of influential citizens and like-minded individuals with the intention of forming the Musselburgh Sports Club in April 1920. We're very fortunate here at Musselburgh to have found the original minute book of the Musselburgh Sports Club, where in April 1920, Provost Mitchell, along with John Young and 5 others, met to discuss the formation of the club. Amongst those was P.E.C. Honeyman, who was later to go on to become the first president of the club. Turning the page, we reach a meeting on the 15th of February 1921, and under item C we see that the committee considered an application for the forming of a rugby section, and this was indeed sanctioned. So Musselburgh Rugby Football Club was born. So we now have the club formed, but we had the challenge of where would we play and what would we play in. The committee at the time decided that they would try and find a suitable area where all the sports could be played. It did, however, take some time. So in the year 1921, only a few friendlies were played. So our earliest recorded match is an away fixture against the Royal College of Surgeons on the 2nd of November 1921, a match won by Musselburgh 9-3. The first captain of the club was W.B. Shorthouse, known as Tilly.
He always played in the front row and was a good motivator. He never missed a training session and encouraged others to do the same. He set a fine example.
After prolonged negotiations, the Earl of Weems entered into an agreement with the Musselburgh Sports Club to lease 7 acres of land at Shirehaugh, Musselburgh. The club had by now applied to join the Edinburgh and District Junior League. So to get ready for the 1922 season, the pitch at Shirehaugh had to be created. It had to be fenced off, and amazingly, because it was so remote, a bridge had to be built. Well, we've taken a walk up through Mountain Hall Golf Club down to the River Esk, and I think this brings back some memories for you, George.
It does that. We used to run down the Red Brae, come right along here, across the wooden bridge into this side.
And that's the foundations
and that's
across
the
there?
foundation of the bridge there. Yeah.
My goodness.
Yeah.
I would never have known that. The pitch was in a rough and ready state and was in no condition to be played upon. So the grammar school pupils were engaged to clear the stones that were present. And this was all accomplished for the start of the 1922-23 season. With John Young at the helm, the decision was made to build a pavilion. This would be at the magnificent cost of £40. The basic construction was a wooden shed, and outside there was a bath. The bath itself had no mains supply, so a bucket line had to be formed to transport water from the River Esk to the tank. Well, George, we made it from the Esk to where the pitch was.
Yeah.
What's your recollection of how the pitch ran?
My recollection is the pitch ran from west to east. looking at, as we're looking, it ran right down that way.
Right in that way.
Yeah, with the Nissan hut on the other side of the pitch.
There was only a little Nissan hut
Yeah, it was rounded like
in your day.
Aye.
Yeah, but in the early days, of course, they talked about a pavilion, which would be on this side of the pitch,
Yeah.
I would imagine,
Yeah.
because they had to run a bucket line to get the bath filled up.
Yeah.
So I think in the early days we can say the pioneers of the rugby club certainly put the work in to get the club started.
They certainly did.
They certainly did. And of course they shared this with the other sports
Yeah.
back then. There was a running track, with football, there was a ladies golf section, and of course a cricket square.
And
Whilst there's no team photograph from 1922-23, there are records that show in that season the club played 20 games, won 14 and lost only 6. The Musselburgh Sports Club itself was parochial in its attitudes, and only people that lived in Musselburgh were allowed to be a member of the sports club. There is a record in 1924 of a match between a rugby team from Musselburgh and Shirehaugh being the opponents. Today, of course, we are all one, Musselburgh and Shirehaugh. Unfortunately, in 1925, the pavilion itself was vandalised and had to be razed to the ground. A new pavilion was created. However, in 1926, the strong gales actually blew that one away as well. Unfortunately, they also damaged the bridge. In 1927, a new pavilion was erected of more sturdy nature, and the bridge was improved with steel cabling to replace the wooden structure that was there before. The steel, of course, coming from Brunton's wire mill. As we approach the 1930s, a young man comes on the scene by the name of Bill Caird. Bill would be an influential character over the next 25 years in Musselburgh's development. Bill was supported in his efforts by quite a few regular performers in the team, none more so than Alec Baxter, who also captained this side during the 30s. Fixture cards had been produced as early as 1926. Fixture cards continued to be produced right up until the modern digital age. During the 30s, the rugby club continued to thrive, with membership increasing. Unfortunately, the other clubs that had been created as part of the Musselburgh Sports Clubs, namely football, athletics, cricket and golf, were all going their own separate ways. So by 1938, all these sections had faded away, and the decision was taken to rename Musselburgh Sports Club Musselburgh Rugby Club in its entirety. In 1938, the first Musselburgh Sevens were run, and the winners were Royal High. Unfortunately now, of course, the outbreak of World War II brought a halt to all rugby of an official nature. However, during the war years, under the leadership of George Clark and the captaincy of Alex Caird, games were continued to be played, so Musselburgh Rugby Club continued to be in existence. After the war had ended in 1945, rugby returned to Shirehaugh, and the team continued to play in the Edinburgh District Junior League. However, in 1946, the club celebrated its semi-jubilee by playing a game against the mighty Hawick at Shirehaugh, a game which we won 8-6.
Eric, what's your recollections of that semi-jubilee game against Hawick?
Oh, I remember that well. We played at Shirehaugh, of course.
Yes.
So a shed that passed as a changing room. Bill Caird had got me a leave from Glencoe to come and play in it. I remember all the team and coming down. I think it was great. It was a Saturday game, and it was a close game. It was 8-6 we won.
That's right.
I can't remember how we made that, but I suspect it was a converted try and a penalty that
Yes,
we had.
I think that's right.
Like 6 points came from in that sense. But I remember it was a very good Hawick team, by the way. We shouldn't underestimate them because they had some cracking players in it.
It says in the programme that you scored a conversion. Would that be right? Did you take the kicks for goal?
Well, sometimes I used to do that. I did that. At times I've forgotten that.
Yeah.
I wasn't a regular kicker. It was probably Alaric Monson. But that would be